the warrior's blueprint for coming back from ruin. There's a specific kind of poverty that only formerly wealthy men understand. It's not the poverty of never having. It's the poverty of once holding everything in your hands and watching it slip through your fingers like sand. The poverty of knowing exactly what you lost because you can still taste it. This is the story of a man who went from millionaire to drowning in debt in less than 18 months. A man who lost his business, his house, his wife, and his identity. A man who sat in an empty apartment with $200,000 in debt and seriously considered whether the world would be better off without him. But this is also a story of resurrection, of rising from ashes, of discovering that the man you become after you lose everything is often stronger than the man you were when you had it all. If you've ever experienced financial devastation, if you've ever felt the shame of failure crushing your chest, if you've ever wondered whether comeback is even possible after you've fallen that far, this story will show you the way back. Not through motivation, not through positive thinking, but through an ancient system of wisdom that's helped warriors, philosophers, and faithful men rise from defeat for thousands of years. His name was Solomon, and this is how he went from millionaire to broken to reborn. Chapter 1. The Empire. Solomon was 43 years old when his world collapsed. But let's start with who he was before the fall, because you need to understand what he built to understand what he lost. Solomon owned Apex Manufacturing, a precision parts company he'd started at 28 with a $50,000 loan and a dream. 15 years later, Apex employed 63 people, generated $8 million in annual revenue, and supplied components to aerospace and automotive companies across North America. He wasn't just successful, he was the success story. The guy who started in a garage and built an empire through 70-hour weeks, calculated risks, and relentless execution. He lived in a 4,200 square foot home in the best neighborhood, drove a Range Rover. His wife, Catherine, didn't work, didn't need to. Their daughter, Rachel, was a junior at a prestigious private university. Their son, Michael, was in his senior year of high school, already accepted to 3 excellent colleges. Solomon's net worth sat comfortably at $3.2 million. Not billionaire money, but the kind of wealth that meant security, options, legacy. He was respected in his industry, trusted by his employees, admired by his peers. He sat on the board of his church and donated generously to local charities. From the outside, Solomon had won. He'd achieved the American dream and then some. But success has a way of breeding a particular kind of dangerous confidence. The confidence that whispers, "You figured it out. You know how the game works. You can't lose." That confidence is what leads men off cliffs. Chapter 2. The decision that changed everything. It started at a dinner party in November 2020. Solomon was talking with a friend, a tech entrepreneur who'd made millions in cryptocurrency. The guy showed Solomon his portfolio on his phone, numbers that seemed impossible. "I turned $200,000 into $2.8 million in 18 months, the friend said. "Solomon, guys like us who understand business and calculated risk, this is the opportunity of our generation. The wealth transfer is happening right now." Solomon had heard about crypto, of course, had dismissed it as speculation, gambling, not real business. But the numbers his friend showed him were real, verified, documented. That night, Solomon couldn't sleep. He ran the calculations in his head. If he put $500,000 into the right positions, just a fraction of his net worth, and saw even half the returns his friend had, he could accelerate his retirement timeline by a decade, could fund both kids' graduate schools without thinking about it, could expand Apex to dominate the entire region. Catherine was skeptical. "Sul, we don't understand that world. Stick to what you know." "I understand risk and reward," Solomon replied. "I built this business by taking calculated risks when everyone else was playing it safe. This is just another calculated risk." But here's what Solomon didn't understand then, what he wouldn't understand until it was too late. There's a difference between calculated risk in a field you understand and speculation in a market you don't. He started small, $100,000 in Bitcoin and Ethereum in December 2020. By March 2021, it had grown to $180,000. The friend had been right. Solomon felt that old familiar feeling, the thrill of being ahead of the curve, of seeing an opportunity others had missed. He doubled down, $400,000 more, then $300,000. Then he did something that still makes him sick to remember. He took out a $500,000 line of credit against Apex Manufacturing and put it into altcoins his friend was absolutely certain were going to explode. By October 2021, Solomon's crypto portfolio was worth $2.1 million on paper. He'd nearly doubled his money in less than a year. He was was a genius. He'd cracked the code. Catherine asked him to cash out, take the win, walk away. Soon, he said. Let's hit $3 million, then I'll pull everything and we'll be set for life. The ancient Stoics had a word for this: pleonexia, the insatiable desire for more, the inability to be satisfied with enough. Solomon had it, and he didn't even know he was infected. Chapter 3. The Collapse. The crash started in November 2021. Slow at first, normal volatility, Solomon told himself. But by January 2022, the bottom was falling out. His $2.1 million portfolio became $1.4 million, then $900,000, then $600,000. Solomon couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. He spent every waking hour staring at charts, reading analysis, trying to time the recovery. Sell now, Catherine begged. We're still up from where we started. If I sell now, I lock in the losses, Solomon said, his voice tight. It's going to recover. Every crash recovers. I just need to wait it out. This is the lie desperate men tell themselves when they're drowning. Just hold on a little longer. By May 2022, his portfolio was worth $180,000, barely more than his initial investment, and he'd put in nearly $1.3 million total. The $500,000 line of credit against his business, gone, vaporized into digital vapor. Now he had a real problem. The credit line payment was $4,200 a month, and it was secured against Apex. If he defaulted, the bank could take his business. He did what desperate men do. He threw good money after bad. He sold stocks, liquidated retirement accounts, taking massive tax penalties, and put another $300,000 into crypto, convinced he could trade his way back to even. By September 2022, the entire market had collapsed. His portfolio, $47,000. Total invested, $1.6 million. Total remaining, $47,000. The line of credit payments were now 3 months behind. The bank sent a default notice. Either pay the full $500,000 immediately or they'd begin foreclosure proceedings on Apex Manufacturing. Solomon sat in his home office, hands shaking, and realized he'd destroyed everything. 15 years of building, of sacrifice, of careful growth, gone because he thought he was smarter than the market. He had to sell Apex, the business he'd built from nothing, the company that bore his sweat and blood in every machine, every process, every client relationship. He sold it for $1.8 million, far below what it was worth, but he was desperate and the buyers knew it. After paying off the credit line, the business debts, the taxes, he had $890,000 left, enough to stabilize, to rebuild, to start over. But Solomon had learned nothing. He was certain, absolutely certain, that he could trade his way back, that he could recover the losses if he just made smarter plays. He put $600,000 back into crypto in December 2022, convinced he was buying the bottom. By March 2023, it was worth $127,000. Chapter 4. The Unraveling. Catherine filed for divorce in April 2023. I can't watch you destroy yourself anymore, she said, her voice hollow. You've become someone I don't recognize. You chose gambling over our family, and I'm done. Solomon tried to fight it, but he had no fight left. The divorce took the house, the beautiful 4,200 square foot dream they'd built together. She got the cars, most of the remaining savings, and alimony that he couldn't afford. When the dust settled, Solomon was living in a 650 square foot apartment with rented furniture. His net worth, negative $200,000. Credit card debt from trying to maintain appearances, from legal fees, from the desperate thrashing of a man who couldn't accept what was happening. If you've ever experienced financial devastation, the shame, the isolation, the feeling that you've failed everyone who believed in you, hit the like button. You're not alone in this. Rachel called in May. Dad, the tuition payment bounced. What's going on? Solomon sat in his empty apartment and had to tell his daughter, his brilliant, hardworking daughter who'd earned her spot at that university, that he couldn't pay, that she'd need to take out loans, find scholarships, maybe transfer to a state school. The silence on the other end of the phone was worse than screaming. I thought you were successful, she finally said, her voice small. I thought we were. I don't understand what happened. Neither did he. Or rather, he understood too well. He'd gambled everything on a game he didn't understand, because his ego convinced him he was special, that the rules didn't apply to him. Michael stopped answering his calls. Catherine blocked his number. His former employees, people who'd depended on him for their livelihoods, heard he'd sold the company and most assumed he'd cashed out and retired rich. They didn't know he was living in an apartment that cost less than his old monthly car payment. The shame was suffocating. Solomon stopped going to church, couldn't face the people who knew him as the successful businessman, the generous donor, the guy who'd made it, couldn't face the questions, the pity, the judgment. He stopped answering his phone entirely, stopped checking email, stopped opening mail because it was all bad news anyway. Collection notices, final warnings, debt consolidation offers. This is what freezing looks like. This is what happens when a man's identity is so shattered that he can't even begin to know who he is anymore. When the path forward is so unclear that paralysis seems safer than any movement in any direction. Solomon spent his days in that apartment, curtains drawn, living on protein bars and instant ramen because cooking felt like too much effort. He'd wake up at noon, scroll his phone for hours looking at crypto prices, torturing himself with what-ifs, then go back to sleep. His bank account had $1,847. His credit cards were maxed. His phone was one missed payment from being shut off. Men don't talk about this part. We don't talk about the absolute bottom, the place where you're not even sure you want to continue. We suffer in silence because we're supposed to be providers, supposed to be strong, supposed to have it figured out. Solomon sat on the edge of his rented bed one night in June 2023 and thought about how much easier it would be to just stop. He had a $500,000 life insurance policy, one of the few things he'd managed not to liquidate. If he were gone, at least Rachel could finish school. Catherine would be taken care of. His kids wouldn't have to carry the shame of having a father who'd destroyed everything. He sat there for 3 hours, seriously considering it. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just running the cold calculation of whether his family would be better off with the insurance money than with him. What stopped him wasn't hope. It was something smaller. He was too tired even to execute that plan. Too frozen, too empty. So he went to sleep instead, and when he woke up the next morning, there was a text from a number he didn't recognize. Solomon, it's Henry Chen. I heard you might be going through a rough patch. Let's get coffee. On me. Chapter 5. The Unexpected Mentor. Solomon almost deleted the text. Henry Chen was a name from the past, a manufacturing executive Solomon had met at a conference 7 years ago. They'd had one good conversation, exchanged business cards, then fallen out of touch. Why was he reaching out now? How did he even know about Solomon's situation? Pride told Solomon to ignore it, to hide, to avoid the humiliation of someone from his successful past seeing what he'd become. But desperation is sometimes stronger than pride. They met at a small diner on a Thursday morning. Solomon showed up unshaven, wearing jeans and a wrinkled shirt, a far cry from the tailored suits he used to wear. Henry was already there, sitting in a corner booth, looking exactly as Solomon remembered. Late 60s, sharp eyes, calm demeanor. Thanks for coming, Henry said, no pity in his voice, just steadiness. They ordered coffee. Henry didn't dance around it. I heard what happened, he said. Sold Apex. Marriage ended. Financial trouble. That about right? Solomon nodded, couldn't quite make eye contact. I want to tell you something I don't share often, Henry continued. In 2009, I lost everything, and I mean everything. I owned a precision machinery company, 32 years of building. I'd survived recessions, competitors, market shifts, thought I was untouchable. Solomon looked up. Then, the 2008 crash hit, Henry said. I'd leveraged the company to expand, 3 new facilities, borrowed $4 million. When the automotive industry collapsed, our orders dropped 80% overnight. I couldn't make payroll, had to lay off people who'd been with me for decades. Eventually, lost the whole company in bankruptcy. What happened? Solomon asked quietly. I froze, Henry said. Just like you're freezing now. Couldn't make decisions. Couldn't move forward. Couldn't even get out of bed most days. My wife left. Couldn't handle watching me give up. I was 61 years old, bankrupt, divorced, living in my brother's guest room. I seriously considered whether it was worth continuing. The parallel was so exact, it hurt. What changed? Solomon asked. I met someone who'd been through worse, Henry said. A man who'd lost 2 businesses, buried a child, and survived cancer. He told me something I'll never forget. Henry, you're treating your failure like it's your identity. It's not. It's just information. Data about what doesn't work. The only question that matters is, what are you going to do with that information? Henry leaned forward. Solomon, you made a catastrophic mistake. You gambled money you couldn't afford to lose on something you didn't understand. That's a fact. But here's another fact. You built a successful business from scratch once. You know how to create value. You know how to solve problems. You know how to work. Those abilities didn't evaporate with your bank account. I'm $200,000 in debt, Solomon said. I'm 45 years old, starting from worse than zero. I was 61 and $600,000 in debt, Henry replied. Want to know where I am now? Debt-free, running a consulting practice that generates $400,000 a year, remarried to an incredible woman, relationship with my kids fully restored. It took me 6 years, but I rebuilt everything I'd lost and became someone better in the process. Solomon felt something he hadn't felt in months, the faintest flicker of possibility. I'm going to tell you what my mentor told me, Henry said. I'm going to give you a system, not a get-rich-quick scheme, not a motivational motivational speech, a system based on ancient wisdom that's helped men rise from defeat for thousands of years. But you have to do something first. What? You have to stop hiding. You have to unfreeze. You have to make one decision. Are you going to let this failure define you, or are you going to let it refine you? Chapter 6. The Ancient System of Rising. They met twice a week for the next month. Henry introduced Solomon to a way of thinking he'd never encountered in business school or on the factory floor. The Stoics, Henry explained, had a concept called amor fati, love of fate, not acceptance of defeat, but the decision to use whatever happens to you as fuel for growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." How does philosophy help me pay off $200,000? Solomon asked, still skeptical. Because right now you're paralyzed by shame and regret, Henry said. You're spending all your energy beating yourself up for what happened instead of using that energy to build what comes next. The Stoics understood something crucial. You can't change the past, but you're creating the future right now with every decision you make. Henry pulled out a notebook and drew a simple diagram. There are 5 principles that will guide your comeback. They're drawn from Stoic philosophy, the samurai code of Bushido, and biblical wisdom. Together, they form a system for rising from any defeat. First, acceptance without surrender, based on Stoic philosophy. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." You've been torturing yourself with what-ifs. What if you hadn't invested in crypto? What if you'd listened to Catherine? What if you'd sold at the peak? Solomon, those questions are chains. Cut them off. Accept the reality. You're $200,000 in debt. Your marriage ended. You lost your business. These are facts. But here's another fact. You're still breathing. Your mind still works. Your abilities still exist. Acceptance isn't giving up. It's clearing the battlefield so you can see what you're actually fighting. Second, honor in defeat, which is a samurai principle. The samurai code of Bushido teaches that there's no dishonor in falling, only in staying down. A samurai who lost a battle didn't commit seppuku out of shame unless he'd betrayed his principles. Losing isn't shameful. Giving up is. You haven't betrayed your principles, Solomon. You made a bad bet. You're not a bad man. You're a man who made a mistake. The honorable response isn't to hide from it. It's to face it, learn from it, and rise stronger. Third, the resurrection principle. Let's not forget biblical principles. Job lost everything: wealth, family, health. He sat in ashes. His friends told him to curse God and die. But Job said, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." Job didn't understand why he was suffering, but he decided to remain faithful to the process. The Bible says that God restored Job's fortunes twofold, not because Job complained less or tried harder, because Job endured with integrity. Your story isn't over, Solomon. This is the crucible. This is where character is forged. The question is, what kind of man will emerge from this fire? Fourth, Kaizen, microscopic progress, a Japanese principle. You can't fix this overnight. You're going to be tempted to look for another big win, another shortcut, another way to reclaim what you lost quickly. Don't. That's the same thinking that destroyed you. Instead, you're going to rebuild brick by brick, one small action every day. The Japanese call it Kaizen, continuous improvement through tiny changes. It feels slow because it is slow, but slow and steady actually gets you there. Fast and reckless gets you where you are right now. Fifth, Gammon, endurance with dignity. Gammon is the Japanese concept of enduring the unbearable with patience and dignity, not passive suffering, but active perseverance. You're going to have hard days, Solomon, days when the shame feels crushing, days when you want to quit. Gammon says endure, not because it's easy, but because the alternative is unacceptable. Henry closed the notebook. These 5 principles will guide you back, but only if you commit to the system, only if you're willing to do the work even when you don't feel like it, even when it seems hopeless, even when progress is invisible. What's the first step? Solomon asked. Tomorrow morning, you're going to do 3 things. First, you're going to write down every debt you owe, exact amounts, interest rates, minimum payments. No more avoiding it. Face the reality. Second, you're going to send 1 email to 1 former colleague in manufacturing, not asking for a job, just reconnecting. Third, you're going to spend 30 minutes learning 1 skill that could add value in the marketplace. That's it. That's it for day 1. 3 small actions. Then the next day, you do 3 more. We're not trying to solve everything tomorrow. We're trying to prove to yourself that you can move forward, that you're not frozen anymore. If you want to turn your life around, then text REBUILD to 325-378-6868 to receive a free 1-page guide on these 5 principles and a 90-day comeback action plan. Chapter 7, The Long Climb Back. The first month was brutal. Solomon faced the numbers: $200,000 in debt, broken down across 7 credit cards and 2 personal loans. The interest alone was eating him alive. Henry helped him create a plan. Bankruptcy was an option, but not the first option. Debt is just a number, Henry said. It can be negotiated, consolidated, repaid. Your integrity can't be rebuilt as easily. If you can avoid bankruptcy and pay your debts, do it. It'll take longer, but you'll respect yourself more. Solomon got a job as a manufacturing consultant, far below his former status, but it paid $85,000 a year, enough to cover his basic expenses and start chipping away at the debt. He negotiated with creditors. Most were willing to settle for 60 to 70 cents on the dollar if he could pay in lump sums. He sold everything he had left. His watch, his golf clubs, furniture he didn't need. Every dollar went to debt. He lived on $2,000 a month, rented apartment, basic groceries, no entertainment, no luxuries. It was monastic. It was humbling. It was necessary. Every morning he wrote in a journal, a practice Henry had taught him. Not manifestation or positive thinking, but honest assessment. What went well yesterday? What could improve? What's one action I can take today? The Stoic philosophers became his constant companions. Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The Samurai Code reminded him that honor isn't about never falling. It's about the quality of your rise. Miyamoto Musashi wrote in The Book of Five Rings, "Today is victory over yourself of yesterday. Tomorrow is your victory over lesser men." Scripture grounded him when shame threatened to swallow him whole. Joseph, sold into slavery, falsely imprisoned, rising to become second in command of Egypt. Job, who lost everything and had it restored. The prodigal son, who squandered his inheritance and was welcomed home. 6 months in, Solomon had paid off $45,000 in debt, not through any miracle, just through relentless, grinding discipline. Every extra dollar, every side project, every sacrifice. Rachel reached out. She'd heard from someone that he was working, rebuilding. They met for coffee. Awkward at first, but real. "Dad, I'm proud of you," she said. "Not for what you had, for what you're doing now. This is harder than building a business when everything's going your way." Those words sustained him for months. By the end of year one, Solomon had paid off $73,000 in debt. He was leaner, harder, more focused than he'd ever been. The desperation had burned away everything that wasn't essential. But he was also lonely, profoundly lonely. The work was good, but he came home to an empty apartment every night. No one to share the small victories with. No one to remind him why he was fighting. Chapter 8. The Unexpected Gift. In month 14 of his rebuild, Solomon attended a community financial literacy workshop. He'd started volunteering to teach people about avoiding the mistakes he'd made. That's where he met Elena. She was 41, a CPA with her own practice. Professional, confident, but there was something in her eyes that recognized pain. They talked after the workshop, just small talk at first, but something clicked. Over coffee the next week, Elena shared her story. Divorced 7 years ago from a man who'd hidden a gambling addiction until it destroyed them financially. She'd climbed out of $90,000 in debt he'd left her with, rebuilt her career from scratch, and learned to trust again slowly. "When I saw you teaching that workshop," she said, "talking about your mistakes so honestly, I thought, here's a man who's been through the fire and came out steel instead of ash." They started seeing each other, slowly, carefully. Elena understood something Catherine never had, that financial failure doesn't make a man worthless. That character is revealed in how you respond to catastrophe, not in how well you avoid it. She didn't need Solomon to be rich. She needed him to be honest, to be working, to be growing, and he was all three. "You know what I love about you?" Elena said one night, 6 months into their relationship. "You're not trying to impress me. You're not pretending to be something you're not. You're just real. You're building something solid, and you're not in a hurry." That's rare. Solomon realized something profound. The old Solomon, the millionaire with the big house and the ego to match, would never have attracted a woman like Elena. She wouldn't have respected him. That Solomon was too busy chasing more to appreciate what he had. This Solomon, the one who'd lost everything and was rebuilding with integrity, was becoming a man of substance. By the end of year 2, Solomon was debt-free. Not wealthy, but free. His credit score was rebuilding. His consulting practice was growing. He'd saved $32,000, not a fortune, but a foundation. He'd also started a new venture, teaching other manufacturing professionals how to build sustainable businesses, not get-rich-quick schemes, not leverage and speculation, solid, profitable, sustainable growth. The first year, it generated $47,000 in revenue. The second year, $134,000. It wasn't Apex Manufacturing, but it was his, built on wisdom instead of ego, on patience instead of greed. Chapter 9. The Man Who Rose. 3 years after sitting in that empty apartment considering whether life was worth continuing, Solomon stood in a small but bright office space he'd just leased. Elena was with him. smiling. "It's perfect," she said. It wasn't big, wasn't fancy, but it was debt-free, built with cash, not credit, a symbol of a different kind of success. His phone rang. It was Michael, his son. "Dad, I wanted to tell you something. I'm graduating next month, and I want you to know the way you rebuilt yourself, the way you didn't give up even when you had every reason to, that taught me more than anything you did when you were successful. You showed me that falling isn't failing, staying down is failing." Solomon's eyes filled with tears. Rachel had already told him she was proud, that she'd rather have a father with integrity and $50,000 than a millionaire with no character. She'd paid for most of college herself, loans and scholarships and work study. "It made me tougher, Dad, made me appreciate it more." The relationship with Catherine never healed. Some breaks are permanent, but there was peace. She'd remarried, and Solomon genuinely wished her well. She'd needed a different life, and that was okay. Solomon and Elena got engaged that spring. Simple ceremony planned, nothing extravagant. She didn't need a diamond that cost 3 months' salary. She needed a partner who'd been tested and proven true. His business, Solomon Strategies, was on track to do $220,000 that year. More importantly, it was sustainable. Low overhead, high value, built on relationships and reputation instead of leverage and risk. He'd never be as wealthy as he once was, at least not for a long time, but he was wealthier in ways that mattered more. Peace, integrity, relationships built on truth instead of image. A woman who loved him for who he was, not what he had. Chapter 10, The Lessons of the Fall. One evening, Solomon and Henry sat in that same diner where they'd first met 3 years earlier. "You did it," Henry said simply. "We did it," Solomon corrected. "Without you, I'd still be frozen in that apartment, or worse. I just showed you the path, you walked it. Most men don't. Most men stay frozen, or they chase another quick fix, or they declare bankruptcy and blame the system. You chose the hard way, the honorable way. That's all you." "What did I learn?" Solomon said, more to himself than to Henry. "I learned that net worth and self-worth aren't the same thing. I learned that the man who has nothing but builds with integrity is wealthier than the millionaire who built on sand. I learned that falling doesn't define you, how you rise does." Henry nodded. The samurai understood that the sword is only drawn when necessary, but the warrior trains every day. You've been training in patience, in discipline, in wisdom. That training is now who you are. Marcus Aurelius wrote, Solomon continued, having memorized the passage, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Losing everything was the impediment, but it became the way to discovering who I actually am beneath the title and the bank account. "And biblically?" Henry prompted. "Romans 5:3-4, Solomon said. "We also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope." I had to suffer to develop real character. The old Solomon had success, but no real character. This Solomon has character and hope and a future built on rock instead of sand. The Japanese principles? Kaizen taught me that you don't rebuild an empire overnight. You rebuild it one day, one decision, one small action at a time. Gammon taught me that dignity in suffering is its own form of victory. I endured, I didn't give up, and that endurance transformed me. Henry smiled. "You're going to help a lot of men, Solomon. Men who are where you were, frozen, ashamed, convinced they're finished. You're living proof that comeback is possible. Not easy, not quick, but possible if you're willing to do it the right way." Chapter 11, The Message. Solomon started a podcast 6 months later. Rebuilt. Stories of men rising from financial ruin. Every episode featured a different man who'd lost everything and climbed back. The first episode was his own story. Raw, honest, holding nothing back. The shame, the suicidal thoughts, the frozen paralysis, the long climb back. Within 3 months, the podcast had 50,000 downloads. Men reached out from all over the country. Men sitting in the same place Solomon had sat, wondering if there was a way forward. He told them all the same thing. Yes, there's a way forward, but not the way you think. You're not going to find another big win that fixes everything. You're going to rebuild brick by brick, and it's going to take years, but those years are going to pass anyway. The question is, who are you going to be at the end of them? One email stuck with him. A man named David wrote, "I lost my business to my own bad decisions. I'm $180,000 in debt. My wife left. I was sitting in my car last night with a bottle of pills, and I thought about just ending it. Then I found your podcast. You said something that stopped me. The man you become after the fall is often stronger than the man you were before it. I'm going to find out if that's true." 6 months later, David emailed again. 3 months debt-free. Relationship with my kids healing. Met someone who sees me for who I'm becoming, not who I was. You saved my life, man, not with motivation, with a roadmap. That's when Solomon knew why he'd gone through everything. Not just for his own redemption, but to light the path for others walking through the same darkness. Solomon's story isn't unique. Right now, there are thousands of men sitting in apartments, offices, cars, staring at debt they can't imagine paying, at failures they can't explain, at futures that look impossibly dark. Maybe that man is you. If it is, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not finished. Financial failure doesn't define you. The worst decision you ever made doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do next. You have three choices right now. First choice, stay frozen, hide from the reality. Numb yourself with distraction, substances, or despair. This is the choice most men make. It's also the choice that guarantees you stay exactly where you are. Second choice, chase another quick fix. Look for the next big opportunity, the shortcut, the way to get back to where you were fast. This is what Solomon did after losing Apex, and it cost him everything. Don't make his mistake twice. Third choice, rebuild the right way. Accept where you are. Face the numbers. Make a plan. Take one small action today, then another tomorrow, then another the next day, for months, for years, until one day you look up and realize you've become someone you actually respect. This is the silent CEO way. We don't rebuild through noise and hype. We rebuild through silence and work, through stoic acceptance of what is, through samurai honor in defeat, through biblical faith that the testing of our character produces perseverance, and perseverance produces hope. Your challenge, I want you to do what Solomon did on day one. Three things. First, write down every debt you owe, exact amounts. No more hiding from the numbers. You can't fight an enemy you won't look at. Second, identify one skill you could develop or one connection you could rebuild that would add value. Don't apply for jobs yet. Just identify it. Third, do something, anything, that proves you're not frozen anymore. Go for a walk, send one email, make one call. Movement breaks paralysis. Do these three things today. Then tomorrow, do three more small things. We're not trying to fix everything in a day. We're trying to prove to yourself that forward motion is still possible. Comment below with the word rebuild if you're committing to this path. When you write it publicly, you're making a covenant with yourself. You're saying, I'm done being frozen. I'm done hiding. I'm ready to do the work. Text REBUILD to 325-378-6868 to receive your free one-page guide with the 5 principles Solomon used and a 90-day action plan for financial and personal comeback. The truth men need to hear. Men don't always have someone to turn to in times like these. We're taught to be providers, to have answers, to never show weakness. So we suffer in silence. We freeze. We avoid. We convince ourselves that if we ignore it long enough, it'll go away. It won't. But here's what also true. Men can rise from anything if they're willing to do it the right way. Not the fast way, not the easy way. The right way. The way of honor. The way of integrity. The way of microscopic daily progress compounded over years. Solomon lost $3.2 million in net worth and gained something far more valuable. Character forged in fire. He lost a marriage built on success and found love built on truth. He lost a business built on ego and created a mission built on purpose. Your past decisions don't define you unless you let them. Learn from them, own them, then move forward without the weight of shame holding you back. The ancient Stoics knew this. The samurai lived this. Scripture promises this. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Psalm 35. Your night has been long, but morning is coming. Not because you wish it, because you're building it. One decision, one action, one day at a time. This is the silent CEO method. We command our lives not through force, but through discipline. We rise not through luck, but through labor. We rebuild not through shortcuts, but through systems. We honor the warrior who falls and rises. We follow the Stoic who accepts what is and builds what will be. We trust the ancient promise. Those tested by fire emerge as gold. The next video on your screen will show you how to apply these same principles to building unshakable confidence after failure. Because financial recovery is just the beginning. You need to rebuild your identity too. Remember this. Even when everything seems lost, you can still turn it around. Even when shame feels overwhelming, you can still move forward. Even when the debt seems impossible, you can still pay it down. Even when you've lost it all, you can still rebuild, better than before. You are not finished. Your story isn't over. This is just the chapter where the hero falls. The next chapter is where he rises. Make the choice. Take the first step. Do the work. Walk with honor. Rebuild with integrity. Rise with dignity. This is the silent CEO method.